and welcome to Connected Conversations for Creatives, a place where creatives like you can learn, grow, and connect. I'm your host, Jennifer Carr. Imagine with me, if you will, the slow melodic rise of a violin as the image of a bustling cityscape at dawn comes into view. The golden hour casting a warm glow that promises new beginnings and untold stories. As the violin's crescendo reaches its peak, there is a solitary figure standing at the edge of a rooftop overlooking the city. The young woman lifts her violin and bow, her silhouette framed against the sprawling city below. The music swells as she plays, her notes weaving through the skyscrapers, an echo of her dreams and aspirations. Snapshots of her childhood are brought to life, showing her initial clumsy attempts to coax music from her violin, her frustrations and tears, and the unwavering support of her grandfather, himself a retired orchestra maestro. As music fills the air, we see her now, years later, more confident and poised. The scene shifts to a crowded auditorium where the woman is performing her first major solo concert. The stakes are high and the tension is palpable. Her family and friends are in the audience, their faces a mix of anticipation and pride. Between the live performance and scenes of the city at dawn, parallels are drawn between the city awakening to a new day and a young woman stepping into her future. Each note she plays is a step forward, a narrative of her growth, resilience, and the culmination of years of dedication. As the final note lingers in the air, the cityscape is fully illuminated by the morning sun. The music fades as the words, "Every dream has its dawn, seize yours," emerge to the forefront of the image. You could feel that story, didn't you? You could visualize the narrative. Our brains are wired to visualize, to paint pictures, to engage with stories in a way that brings mere words to life. And this is precisely the magic of video storytelling that transcends across fields, whether it's music, art, business, or education. Content creators leverage this inherent human connection to story to elicit emotions, convey messages, and drive engagement, transforming viewers into participants in a shared experience. And who better to discuss this transformative power of video storytelling than our guest today, Dan Fisher. With over a decade of experience at the forefront of video production and strategic content creation, Dan has mastered the art of engaging audiences and enhancing brand narratives through compelling videos. And today he'll be sharing his insights on how every creative can harness the potential of video storytelling, not to only capture attention, but also to inspire to action and drive results. So let's settle in for a conversation about the art and impact of storytelling through video with Dan, and maybe we'll learn how to craft our own narratives that resonate and make a lasting impression on your audience. Dan, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge on this topic. I know it's one that if people are using it, they're probably not using it to its fullest potential, and we're probably actually underutilizing it.
Thanks for having me. And wow, that is an introduction. How long did it take you to craft that introduction?
Ooh, I probably spend a good hour and a half getting my introductions always put together for every guest that I have. And so it takes a hot minute.
Yeah. If it only takes you an hour and a half, that's amazing. Not that there's a rush or a time limit on it, but yes, I have not been introduced with pros like that ever. So thank you.
And you'll never find it anywhere else. You're so very welcome. And seriously, thank you for being here. I know that you've got a busy schedule and sometimes meeting up is just a little complicated.
Harder than it should be. Right?
Definitely.
Considering all we have to do is sit on the computer, right?
I mean, tell me about it. All right. So tell us a little bit about your journey into video storytelling. Have you always been a storyteller?
So I have always been a storyteller, but I don't think I knew early on what that meant. My first true love is photography, hands down, probably still is. But when I was 18, a friend of my brother's was graduating from college and doing his senior thesis film and needed a warm body, and I was available, and I went on that set and immediately started an insane romance with me and video production and filmmaking and everything associated with that. So I changed my major in school. I studied communications and film history and I couldn't get enough. And then even at that point when I finished undergraduate, I still didn't have a clear direction of what I was going to do. All of my friends and colleagues were moving to Hollywood to become the next big director, big writer, big this, big that. And I just kind of went along for the ride. to enjoy, because I didn't know I didn't have a design on what I wanted to do or where I wanted to land. And so I just went along for a ride, and I got very lucky along the way and found some areas of the business that I love. Primarily, started off in production and hanging around a lot of cameras and directors. But then when it really got exciting for me was when I started editing. And that's, for me, like the magic of video storytelling. I mean, there's a ton that happens before you edit, and all that is, there's one is not more important than the other, but what happens in the editing room to me is magic. And so that's really when things started to kick it off.
That's interesting. Do you ever go back to photography? Is that something you pick up every now and then?
I do. I stopped doing it for many years, just because of busyness and focus. And that's, of course, on a list of very, very, very tiny regrets. But then when my kids were born, I got pulled back into it for all the obvious reasons. And when other dads are there with their phones, I had like this big camera, like trying to work through it. But everything informs the other, And in fact, I did this charity event for years, where I just would do free portraits, and people would pay whatever they want. All the proceeds would go to the American Cancer Society. And some of my bigger clients before I had this business came out of that, because they liked the way I told the story of their children or their family in a photo. So it's all kind of connected in a wonderful way.
That's so true. I never really considered photography being storytelling, but you have to capture an entire story in one shot. Whereas, with video, you have multiple shots that you can kind of piece together. So that is a totally different talent. So if you can get it in one shot, then sure, you could probably get it in several frames.
Yes. And that's a big contradiction I have in my mind, as an editor, because editors like a lot of footage and a lot of options, and that you can cut it a bunch of different ways. So, in particular in nonfiction editing, which is what I do mostly. But I think because I love photography, a lot of times when I'm working as a director, my aesthetic is, well, if we can capture this in one shot, why don't we? Right? You see those scenes in those films. Martin Scorsese is very known for it, but it's just like one shot that just takes you through and you see the world. Like, I tend to lean in that direction, but because of the business I'm in, I have to shoot in a variety of directions, because the client, inevitably, there's a bigger conversation that happens before, during, and after. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I definitely want to talk about that, because that's actually one of my questions down the road. But thinking about editing, and this is a confession I have only made to my editor today, literally today. I texted her. I had gotten all of my beta reader feedback for the book that I'm working on that comes out in October, and I probably had about 120,000 words, and I was bored reading it. Like, I was, and that's so funny, because I love words. Words are so fun, and they're great, but I was like, I have got to pare this down, and I was like, okay. This morning, I woke up, I was very serious. No, it was yesterday morning. I woke up, I was very serious, and I just started hacking at it. And so I've gone from 120 to 104,000 words. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot. And do you know, like, I feel lighter just rereading it and so if you can tell the story and be just as powerful in fewer words or fewer images, I mean, clearly you're doing the right thing. You're telling the right story in the right way. Yeah.
Right. And it's a challenge.
It is.
Because the client is an entity, and it usually has 5 minds in it, and everything we do is super subjective, and so you have to satisfy those 5 minds, and so that's why oftentimes you shoot as much as you do, and then when you're figuring it out, it's like, what about this? Can we get that? Or everyone loves something different. And you're trying to fit it all in. You're never going to get it all in. So you have to go through this funny song and dance where everybody gets to see a version of what they think is the better one. And then you push it over to them and say, let me know what you decide as a group, because we can't go like this forever.
Yeah, and that's so hard because it translates over into writing as well. That's why we have so many different kinds of books in the same genre, right? Like
Mhm.
all the romance books are completely different because everybody wants something different and you can't satisfy them all with one book. So I guess you just have to take the best one you can get in the end. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Hope for the best. Oh my gosh. Now, you work mostly with long form video, correct?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just moving out of the way from the sun.
That's
Sun's in
okay.
my eye. Our primary duration is, I'll say, 3 minutes.
Okay.
Plus or minus. 9 times out of 10, I would encourage 2 minutes and 30 seconds or less for the types of videos we're doing. But I just did a series of 15s for a client. We're working on a 30-minute documentary for another client. So the range is wide in terms of duration. I think probably the consistency in what we do is we do mostly nonfiction stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. So when and it's funny because I am of the mindset that 3 minutes is a pretty good time to get your point across, but we're kind of being trained in this whole, 7 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, not 3 minutes, anything over
Mhm.
that, and you've lost people. And so, but now I just noticed recently, like, TikTok does 10-minute videos. I don't know if I would sit and watch a 10-minute video on TikTok these days. And that's so hard because you have to be able to get in and get out on things like that. And so, but 3 minutes is actually kind of terrifying for me because I'm doing good to get to a minute and a half. So what kind of stories are you telling in 3 minutes, even in the nonfiction world?
So a lot of times it's a brand story.
Okay.
It's obviously not a commercial. Occasionally it's a product video, but product videos usually don't last more than 90
Yeah.
seconds. More times than not, it's a brand story or it's a bio of somebody or it's some documentary format that allows itself to take a breath. And then there's this weird equation where if from 3 to 5 is kind of the same thing, right? Especially in nonfiction because, or I should say documentary, because sometimes you could have a minute long interview bite. And so it doesn't become more challenging of how to make it longer. It actually becomes easier to just let it go.
Let it go. Yeah.
So those types of things that where taking a breath and letting the emotion breathe is what you want. I'm kind of quirky in the way though that whether I'm making a 5-minute video or pick a time, I know that I have to intrigue you at 0 seconds.
Yes.
And I have to hold your attention for 10 to get you to watch till 30. And maybe I just take it from doing pre-rolls, pre-roll ads for YouTube. But as soon as I can hit the skip button, I do.
Done.
Maybe one in like 20 videos, I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Let me watch it. Yeah, and I study video. I love all videos. I want to know what commercials are being. But when I'm a consumer and I'm trying to get to whatever thing I searched, I don't care for an ad. So my default is to I'm ready on the skip button. And then every once in a while, I'm like, oh, I just watched the whole thing.
I'm with you. Like, there are very few times that I'll sit and watch. Also, though, they're not very creative because it's the same ad all the time because they're tracking, right? They're tracking what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to see the sticker app ad 14 times on YouTube before it moves to the next one. But yeah, and maybe the first time I did watch it a little longer, but at the same time, be a little more creative in what you're attracting me with because I've seen it, been there, done that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what are your favorite kinds of stories to be part of?
I'm an emotional guy. And so, if every product for me on a personal level was spending the day with real people and telling their stories, that would be it. I mean, I love doing the commercial stuff. I love doing the big budget stuff because you get more toys and you get more bells and whistles and you get a bigger crew. And I love my crews and editing. Sometimes editing on the bigger stuff is super easy. Sometimes it's more challenging. But I think I've just spent so much time in the documentary space that elicits just a really exciting, even like I don't edit as much as I used to. I have a team that does the editing, but even just being in the room or watching the version 1 and giving them notes like is just really exciting for me. Prior to Bottle Rocket Media, I spent 10 years working on the Oprah Winfrey Show, where I cut, like an unimaginable amount of video in a week. And it was all this stuff. It was geared for TV, so it was a little bit more. It was cut tighter. It was a little bit more dialed in, but I just did it like it was an intense decade. And so when I get to like, inspire those roots or do that type of stuff again, it's very exciting. And it comes from weird places for me now because it comes from like pharma clients, because you're talking to patients and doctors. Like I don't, there's real people and then there's real people, you know what I mean? And so, and then a lot of the stuff that we do internally that we do by Bottle Rocket Media, for Bottle Rocket Media, is that kind of stuff. Interesting people, real people in front of camera.
I think focusing on people is a fantastic way. And that's true, like even just for content creators. Like when you start focusing outside of the human aspect, I think things start to get a little muddled. It's kind of like quit trying to sell me something instead of connect with me. And so, which is kind of, where we find ourselves on this side of things. I have to market my books and all that. I don't want to sell you a book. I want you to want to read my book because you're hooked on something that's in the book that I'm sharing with you, or you connect with me as the author who has, put voices to these characters, whatever. And so, I can see how when you start moving away from the human aspect, that it probably does get a little harder to connect with the story behind it, whatever it may be, whether it's a product or a business or anything like that.
Well, authenticity is this buzzword that, too many people are saying it now. So it's no longer, it's no longer as it's harder to be authentic now because everybody is trying to be authentic. But if you are trying to be authentic, you're missing the point of authenticity, right? But everyone says like if you look at other companies similar to mine, everyone has the same kind of tagline of like authentic filmmaking, authentic video productions. And it's like, it's basically like calling rice gluten-free. Like, it's always been gluten-free. Right?
Yes. Right? Oh my gosh, that's so true. And I think to tell a good story, you do have to be authentic. And it's funny because I was thinking about this conversation just the other day. I was thinking about it, and what came to mind was that the old infomercials, Amazing Discoveries. I don't know if this was like back in the 90s. Like it was back when I thought the pinnacle of adulthood was staying up until 2 a.m. and watching TV when I was in like middle school. And so like all these infomercials would come on, and what was the guy's name? Like Stephen Levy, I think is what it was. I had to look it up. I was like, what was his name? But I think it was Martin. Anyway, the host could sell you anything, right? Like he made you felt like you need one of everything that he was selling. But then experience kind of tells you that once you've bought that product, granted, I was not allowed to have my parents' credit card at the time. Otherwise, we would have had an as seen on TV store in my house kind of thing. But like, I know, like, and I'm still kind of addicted to those commercials, but I don't buy it, I promise. But because experience tells you it's going to break, you get what you pay for kind of thing. And so you realize then that these guys are spinning a story to sell you something, and there's no authenticity behind it whatsoever. Like, unless they're really buying what they're saying, but I don't think they do, right? And so how do you help businesses, small businesses, or even creators, like how do you help them present authentically while still aiming for high engagement? Because that's kind of the goal.
So, that's a back and forth collaboration, right? Because I do a lot of research with every client, and of course, the clients I work with more regularly, I know the brand. I have some clients that I've been working with longer than everyone who is currently there, right? People have come and gone, and for some reason I've stayed. It's about finding what the voice is, and then my primary function is to figure out the wrapper to put that voice in. Is it recording a podcast like this? Is it a product video with a model? Is it the CMO or the CEO on camera, and if you want it to be internal, like, is the CEO good on camera? Like, it's all of that, and finding out, what's the best way to just communicate the story. We do a lot of branded content, and so that type of storytelling is, it's almost like, I call it anonymous storytelling, right? It's like stripping away, it's less salesy, it's less direct, and it's more about an idea or an emotion, or, sometimes an anthem or a manifesto, of like who we are, what we believe in, focusing on a specific story. And that's the hardest part about that, is getting the client comfortable with not hearing their name said 19 times a minute.
Yeah.
But once we get over that hurdle and they realize that there's different stages in the customer journey, right? Like you probably don't deal with this when you're trying to sell a book, but the first is just to get people aware that the book is available, right? And then, right, you want to say like, hey, the book is available, and phase 2 would be like, and you're about to finish a book, so consider this book, right?
Yeah.
And then phase 3, and I don't know if you do this, I don't think that you do this, in book terms would be like, I'm going to read an excerpt for you. And if you like it, which, right, you don't do this. But in video production, right, step 1 is, hey, we just want you to know that we're out here. Step 2 is, here are some pain points that this product or company or service fits. And phase 3 is, hey, let me tell you about some specific features, right? And then all 3 of those videos are going to get seen by different people. Like you were saying, everything is tracked, but they know the demographic. Like, they know what my demo is when they send me a video, but they don't know where I am in the journey.
That's true.
So in theory, or hopefully, they're sending me 3 videos from the same company, or 3 types of videos from the same company to get me at the right. So the stage 1 is the one that I thrive on, because that's just really branded content of like, hey, this brand exists. What's a good example? We just did a thing for a cooking school, and the whole video is just audio interviews with the chefs and cooking footage. That's it.
Nice.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, no hours, time, this, that, the other. Just, this is who we are. This is what we do. Right? If that's intriguing, you click the button. So, yeah. So it's just all about, finding what the wrapper is for the client and allowing them to thrive within it.
Now, that makes perfect sense. So when a business comes to you, like, do they come to you with the story already in mind, or do you sit down every time and say, let's write out this narrative and get everybody on the same page?
It depends. It depends on the size of the company, or the size of the marketing department, or the size of the agency, or, and. I think, unfortunately, they usually come with a budget in mind.
That's true.
And that dictates a lot of the conversation. Do you want to make this for $1 million, or do you want to make this for,
Yeah.
And it's never $1 million. Spoiler alert. It's never $1 million. But yeah, so it really depends. We work a lot with smaller agencies, marketing departments, marketing agencies, and companies directly. So, some of the larger companies have surprisingly small marketing department. And so those companies, they don't have time. They say, we want to make a video. This is the initiative. Do you have ideas? Great. We bring on a creative director. We come up with a few ideas. We pitch them. All good. Other companies are like, here are the storyboards. Everything's ready to go. We just need you to execute. Super. Right? Doesn't matter to us, because I have, people that love doing the execution. I have people that love doing the creative, So
Yeah, it's a team effort. It really is a team effort. Some of us sit over here and we do all of those things, and we just cross our fingers and hope for the best.
Yeah, many of my best friends look at me, so my team is like just under 10 people full time, but then if you add freelancers, it could be 15 people a day, and then all of my crews are freelance because the time we spend on set is the least amount of time compared to editing and pre-production.
Yeah.
And they look at me like I'm crazy, and some days I agree with them.
Yeah.
But it's really fun when a client comes in and I have a team of minds, a graphics person, an editor, a director, a creative director, all, my executive producer, all looking at one idea and elevating it. Like, that's a win for everybody in the process and the product. Not to mention, like, I see you writhing in your seat. Like, not to mention the relief that it brings to those, because it's not working with a video company is not supposed to be harder for you. It's supposed to make your life easier, and so easier, more fun, more creative. Like, it's a win. And some days I agree with my friends because more people.
What was I thinking?
More personalities.
Oh yeah.
And I love you all, everybody. Whoever's watching, I love you. And
yes, not but and no, but I'm the same way. Like I would love to hand over and work with a group of people who were all specialized to do this, and this, but it's not always budget friendly. You can't always afford that, and sometimes you do what you can, or you just pick up tricks and tips along the way and hope for the best. So do you think, and this is kind of related to sitting down with people and working through the story that you want to tell, do you think that the social media, like the way we consume it and the way that it's made and how quickly it's put out, or at least as quickly as it looks like it's put out, does that influence the way people come to you and say, hey, I want this and I want it now?
Unfortunately, it does.
Yeah, I figured.
We have been trying to stay away from doing social media only projects.
Yeah.
For a few reasons. They are all obvious, but the big one is turnaround time. We work with, smaller agencies, but the brand names that we work with are a little bit bigger. We've kind of grown into this area where everything is an estimate, and then the estimate gets approved, and so, like, if you call me today and you're like, hey, I want to do TikTok tomorrow, can you do it? It's like, maybe, like, if I've been working with you for years, if you're one of my regular clients, then yes, no problem. But, if somebody calls me out of the blue, hey, we need you to do 12 TikToks, I'm like, all right, I'll get you an estimate. No, we need them to do it tomorrow. I'm like, I don't know you. I can't just come,
Yeah.
But yeah, it affects, more to your point though, because my brain is a little bit on business right now. More to the point, there is a lot of short form happening. There is a lot of TikTok-like or Instagram-like material being created, and it affects everything we do. We shoot, technically speaking, we shoot as best we can for two formats at once. One is the 16:9 widescreen, which is this, and then the other is the vertical. That's a challenge in its own right. And then creatively, it becomes, my graphics are bigger because people are looking on their phone. I need them to read it. Where normally I would want them small and a lot of negative space. The audio design is a little bit different because they're on their phone on the train, So technically all that stuff changes. Good news is, the thing that I love the most, which is story. Story does not change.
That's so true.
Story is a story is a story. It's nice to know going into it that I'm making a 3-minute video that also needs to be 30 and 60 and 15 and maybe 6. That's helpful because sometimes we will shoot alternate takes or alternate intros. And then, And so we adjust for that. If it's an interview, I'll say, great, say it in a sentence. Great, say it in half a sentence. That kind of thing. But the story itself is the same. At least
that's interesting. Yeah, and that's interesting because I'm sitting here thinking, how translatable that would be for small content creators who are trying to, I don't know, sell a book, whatever. You film the same exact thing in multiple different ways, saying it differently. I mean, that's the same way when I write a blurb for the back of the book, which God forbid I have to do anytime soon because that is my least favorite part of the book. But like being able to just say, okay, this is what happened. This is what happened a shorter way. And so that makes perfect sense because then you have multiple types of media to share in different platforms.
Right.
Yeah.
The trick is doing that authentically.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes. Yes. That really is the trick. And I have to admit something. I've never said this in public before, but I only joined TikTok 3 weeks ago.
And you haven't followed me yet?
I've been relying on my younger cohorts, my interns and such, to keep me up to date. And finally
Seriously?
I said, I'm doing it. I did it. And in full disclosure, I have not been on Instagram since I joined TikTok.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Mind blowing. But the trick is, like, the people that do it well, they're just themselves.
My gosh. Yes.
Love them or hate them.
Mm-hmm.
They're just themselves.
Yes.
And so when you get in a situation where what we do is a little bit more dialed in, it's a little bit more directed, it's not just a guy holding a phone or, what have you. It's hard to keep that momentum going,
Oh, yeah.
People don't realize, pick your favorite movie, TV show, nonfiction, scripted, like the amount of skill to stay in character, or and now I'm going deeper than most of what I do even, but and deliver an authentic performance, like it's very hard to do
consistently. Yes, it absolutely is. And here's the thing, and this is something that I've said on different episodes about, when we've talked about branding and that kind of thing, that people can tell when they're talking to you and when they're talking to your business. They can tell a difference. Like, there is a huge difference unless you are always you. And I'm not saying that you put yourself out there 100% of the time. Like, that's not safe. You shouldn't be, that authentic, I think. Like there are, things you have to cut, boundaries, I guess, if you will.
I subscribe to boundaries.
Yeah, boundaries are great. I encourage boundaries.
Yeah.
And so, but at the same time, like, it's okay to be you, because when you are you, that's the audience you want to attract. The ones who are authentically attracted to you because they're going to want what you have to give.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I am challenged with it, mostly because my entire career is about getting in the heads of other people. And so I think authentic me on camera would be different than client services me.
I think, look, we all have our customer service. Yes.
Subtle. Everyone who works with me regularly, there'd be no difference, but the perception in, from afar is so it's all degrees of subtlety, but I don't know where I haven't found my comfort level.
Well, this feels pretty comfortable. Is this not really you? Because it feels genuine and authentic.
This is great. This is
you.
Having a conversation is pretty much what I do for a living, and thank goodness, because I love to talk. But like the idea of, like, you have a TikTok account, now I'm gonna have to search it out. Like the idea of, like, getting up there, I'm starting to do it because I'm being told that I don't have a choice on my team. But the idea of getting out and doing it regularly is, I'm not a like talk to myself kind of guy.
Oh my gosh. I go back and look at 2 years ago when I started my TikTok account, and then I look at, last week or even today, and I'm just like, whew, there was room for improvement. Thank goodness I improved, you have no idea how to start. And that's okay though, because I think even going back and seeing that growth and other people who see your old stuff and your new stuff, they're like, hey, they're actually putting time and energy and effort into getting better, into doing better and producing better content. And so I think that's okay too, to be a little awkward at first, because honestly, that would be more authentically me than anything.
Yeah. Well, I give the same advice to every person that calls me, and it's probably once a week at this point, about becoming, an influencer, or just doing your own channel, whatever it is, whatever you call it. And my advice is always the same thing. Go into your basement or a basement every day for the next 30 days and just record yourself doing a video.
Yeah.
At the end of the 30 days, you'll A, know if you like it enough to do it, and B, know if you have any skill level. You might develop it over 30 days, you know? And I've not exactly taken my own advice. So it's easier said than done.
Sure. Are you lacking the basement or the drive to do it?
Neither.
Oh.
I just can't get over the hump of me talking to myself on camera.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sure I have stuff to offer. I'm sure somebody would listen. Like, I'm not, you know, I don't also have a goal. Like, I don't have a follower goal.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and Bottle Rocket Media has its own accounts on every, you know, platform. So it's a weird, like, personal thing, but not, I don't have the destination yet. So I'm not, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, even followers, though, follower count, video count, view count, it doesn't mean a dadgum thing sometimes. Because I will tell you, I'm just going to say, like, over the last month and a half, maybe just month, I had a video go viral, and it was a repost from 2 years ago. I had posted it, and then I just reposted it because I had nothing else, and it went viral the second time that I posted, not the first, the second time. And it still, a month later, is getting comments and likes and followers, and my follower count increased by over 4,000 followers. My regular video views are still stuck.
Sure.
They have always been stuck. You know, so sure. Follower count, it doesn't mean anything. Well, it does not mean a dadgum thing.
The question is, are you selling more books?
No. See, that's the crazy part, because this video had nothing to do with my books. If it did, maybe I would have. But it's the second time I've had a video go viral that had nothing to do with my books and garnered more followers. I'm just like, why?
Right. To what end? Yeah.
Yeah. So why am I even still doing it? Yeah. Why am I still posting videos about my? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. Anyway. So going back to that was a total derailment. Sorry. So it's fun though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Going back to our previous conversation, what are some of the pitfalls that you've seen businesses fall into when it comes to wanting to put content out there? Like, is there something that you see regularly that you're like, don't do that?
I mean, occupational hazard. All I do is critique other people's work. Like that's a sad reality of who I am. I think everyone knows they need video, and nobody wants to spend money on video. And so I think the challenge is finding your voice, finding the style of video that represents your brand or your company, and doing the homework before you pull the trigger, right? A lot of people know they need video, they feel behind, and they just go out and make video. And they wind up spending money on videos that don't move the needle. And then I meet them, and they have no more money. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is, you know? But I think the mistake is rushing into it. You know, everything is subjective all the time. You know, I've been making videos for 20 plus years, you know, but only in the last 5 do I let the data help me make the decisions. And that's just because of my age and because we didn't grow up with data.
Right.
And so now I, you know, the people that I'm working with have really like drilled it into me, and it makes sense. And it's like, yeah, I'm not going to, you know, suggest a video to you that no one's going to watch. Because the only thing I like better than making the videos is knowing that people enjoyed them, you know? And so, and maybe my personal tastes aren't what the brand needs, aren't mainstream. And so, you know, bring in different talent at different stages of the game that are more appropriately suited to whatever we're doing. So, but I think the big thing is, you know, not to rush into it. And in the end, like you'll save money because you'll be making videos that give you a return on the investment.
And isn't that great advice just in life in general? Like, don't rush into things. Just
Yes.
take a minute. If you take a minute, you'll save time, energy, and money. Like, it's all, don't rush it.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't rush.
Seriously.
Don't
Oh my
rush.
gosh.
I mean,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
literally lost my glasses for a month because I was rushing.
See, even the littlest things, and you know how
Yeah.
inconvenient, like, you know how inconvenient it is to misplace your glasses.
Yeah.
To be like,
Yeah.
one little
Mhm.
choice. That's all it was. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Okay, so I have a couple more questions that have just popped into my head as we're sitting here, but I'm like, we're running out of time. And so I'm going to ask this one anyway. What are your thoughts on AI in your world?
Oh, God, such a loaded question.
I know.
I love AI.
Me too.
I am a Mid-Journey addict. I probably use it daily.
Mhm.
And it's terrifying for a lot of people. I already have a good idea of how it's going to cut into some of my business. And I'm just kind of managing my own expectations. It's great. It's going to be great. It's going to be, right now, it's the Wild West. There's, in particular, as it pertains to video, the big product offerings and apps, aren't out for roughly a year, 8 months. Who knows? Who knows exactly when? Every day there's a change in the biz. So the generative AI stuff is the stuff that I'm talking about. AI behind the scenes, ChatGPT, transcription, some editing software. Like, there's a ton of great stuff. Again, even in the SEO and marketing side of my business, like analysis apps, like there's a ton. Like, it's amazing. The generative stuff is where it becomes challenging because a good example is I probably get an email a week from an aspiring cinematographer. Now, I can't predict the future. Nobody can. And nor am I there to shatter anyone's dreams. But if I'm fresh out of college and I want to work with cameras and I want to create movies, I have to consider very hard what that means for a career, because a lot of what I want to create will be created in the computer. Drone stuff for sure. Stuff that doesn't involve people, almost right away. Stuff that involves animals that don't have to look like, don't have to talk. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's, to consider, right? And that's the kind of stuff that everybody wants to do. So that's a little bit vague response to I love it. There's a lot of great stuff that it can do and that it will do, and I will keep learning it and growing with it. And it's a weird time in the business because the business is already different since 2020, because people are spending different and making different. Back to TikTok, the evolution of TikTok, I believe part of the growth of it has a lot to do with people being locked in their houses for 18 months and staring at screens. This is a quality recording, but this quality recording didn't come out until at least 2021.
Yep.
Right? So we spent 2 years looking at poor imagery. Professionally, I was using as the best quality I could to record stuff remotely, but people accepted whatever quality was available. And so the bar's been lowered. And so the business has changed. That's a reason. But back to AI, it's like a very weird, interesting time to watch it happen, because it's not going to take jobs, but it's going to make you do the job differently. And
so true.
And so, like, I learned how to edit on film.
Ooh.
And the year after I graduated, the school that I went to put digital, incorporated digital. The people that just left school or left school in the last 5 years are not equipped to do the job that they think they're going to do. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I heard this quote earlier today, actually. The thing that got you here is not the thing that's going to get you there.
Whoa.
So that's AI in a nutshell. We all have to learn more.
Yeah, and I think if you'll embrace, and you don't have to embrace every part of it, but you definitely have to embrace it because it's not going anywhere. Like
Totally.
it's just not. It's not. So you
Right.
have to make it work for you, right? Because it's
Yeah.
a tool. It is a fantastic tool. It cuts down on a lot of things in my just organization and the podcast and all of that stuff. Like I sent it a list and said, I have these names. I need to edit all of these things in this order, and I need an email sent this day. And so it just tells me exactly when to do everything. My time I saved hours trying to figure out that schedule.
Right.
You know, I mean,
The way you describe AI is, I've said many times, I could not start a business successfully if the smartphone didn't exist.
Yeah.
I started my business during my commute in the last year of the Oprah show, just starting conceptualizing and thinking about it on my BlackBerry, right? And the way my brain works, because of the generation I'm in, if I had to do, if I couldn't communicate digitally, text, Slack, email, and I had to fax stuff or use a ledger for my books, like all of it, I just wouldn't do that. I would just have a different career path, right?
Yeah.
And so I think AI needs to be seen that way, like as the tool that can elevate you, and if you use it smartly, like you're saying, like all the behind the scenes AI stuff is incredible. Data mining, communication, auto this, auto that. You would be an author and you would have no choice but to hire a marketing firm to get your book out. That would just be it. That would just be right. So,
absolutely. Oh yeah. Like you want to talk about social media posts. Hey, I need to post about da 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 da. And so it gives me a little blurb and I'm like, now to make it sound like me. Thank you very much. Because I don't have time to sit here and come up with 365 posts to put on Facebook multiple times a day.
Right. I'm curious, what's the keyword you put in to make it sound like you?
Now, I will say that it never fails. That it does not matter how many keywords I use, I still have to go back and edit it.
Yes.
There's going to be a word or two that's just like, will you please find a different set of words? The whole vocabulary of the entire universe is open to you, but no, whatever. I'm like, I need this to sound like a 40-year-old female author from America, preferably in the South. And then I'm like, please and thank you, because I don't want AI to come back and get me later.
Right, totally. I'm also like, hey, how you doing today? How was your July 4th holiday?
This was a great response. Thanks so much. Anytime, Jennifer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm not the only one. Okay,
when I do that, I often think that whomever monitors ChatGPT, they're like, oh, that made me smile, or that was a nice part of my day. Or they're like, idiot, it's a computer.
I don't care either way. I'm covering all my bases.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in case. Exactly. In the uprising, I'm safe because I was polite.
Yes, exactly.
That's so funny. Okay, well, that makes me feel a lot better about so many things, and I can go to bed and sleep easily tonight knowing that I'm not crazy. Or there's two of us, one or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the project that you're working on right now that you are most excited about or that you want to talk about?
I am most excited about, we're doing a documentary, a 30-minute documentary. I mentioned it earlier. Me personally, I have grown to really love short form. But all of this starts with watching movies and watching TV and sitting down and being absorbed, And so we've been wanting to push in this direction for a while. We've been wanting to add documentary, long form, feature length documentary. And so we're doing one. It's a bio piece. It's a small thing about an investor in the Chicagoland area. And it's fun. It's a completely different rhythm. It's a completely different, the process is the same, but extended. So it's just a different rhythm to it. And, to sit down and create, it just feels more substantial when I know, and I have accepted this a long time ago, big portion of what I do is disposable, right? You write a book and that book will be on the shelf forever, right? And that's super exciting. And in fact, as a non-writer, I've written my share of screenplays, which everybody does, but I'm at this point where I'm like, maybe I should just try and write a book. In fact, I downloaded all of your freebies from your site because I'm like, this might inspire me to actually do it, you know?
That'd be awesome.
But so it just feels a little bit different. It's exciting. It's not a new way of doing anything. It's what we do all the time, but just, you know, times 10 times, you know. So that's a project that I'm working on that I'm really excited about. We do a lot of work with different organizations. And so we're about to start another project with the American Dental Association, which I really like. I think they do a lot of great work. So that's fun and exciting. And look at a list right here. Oh, this is going to dovetail in very nicely, but there's a project that we're doing. It's actually all animated for a pharmaceutical company. And it's for muscular dystrophy, and it's a drug that helps people that really need it. And that's just, you know, gives me a warm and fuzzy, you know.
I love that.
So yeah, so those are three of too many active projects. Yeah.
I feel that deeply on such a visceral level. Like I get that. I get it.
Yeah.
But I also have my favorites. And so it's one of those things. It's like, these are the ones that bring me the most joy. And so, yeah, no, I love when you can find that excitement and that it doesn't become mundane and you're not going, here's another one. Let's do the same thing today.
Right. One of the fun advantages of my role in this company is that I could sometimes pick and choose what I want to do. And so the farm, you know, so oftentimes we hire freelance writers. And so depending on my schedule, like this pharmaceutical one came up, I'm like, oh, I'd like to write that. Done. You know what I mean? Because I really believe in the company and the product and, you know, so it's good stuff. What's your favorite project you have going on right now?
See, it's really funny because I can't talk too much about them because some of, you know, they haven't all come out yet. But honestly, the book that I'm finishing now, I love it. The book that came out in February, I love it. But the book that comes out after the book 3, I've already written it. And it's like my favorite that I've written so far. But it's not coming out until early next year. And so I'm like, but that's my favorite. I don't know what it is about it other than I love the female main character. And I'm just like, she's so strong and she comes through a lot. And so
wait,
I can't say too much.
I'm not going to goad you, but did you say it's part of a series?
Yes, it's part of the series.
So book 2 is out now, and book 3 is in the wing.
Book 2 comes out in October.
Oh, okay, that's what I know.
Book 3 will come out, early next year. So
okay,
yeah.
And
which, you know, I can talk about that part about when they come out, but that's
right. And so you just hit talk to me like I know nothing about how to write a book, which is exactly the truth. So did you know what book 3 was going to be before you wrote book 2? Like, is it all planned out? Like, this will be a book, that'll be a book.
Okay, so the first book was never meant to be a series. It was going to be a standalone. Like, it was going to be a book. I liked the character. I loved the characters. It was like, here's their story. And then I was like, oh, but you see these 2 little characters in the background? Let's pull them to the forefront. And so I pulled them out and they got book 2. And then I was like, but I really like this character. And he seems like there's something going on behind those eyeballs of his. And so I was like, oh, let's put them together. And book 3 just and so it's been just kind of a process. But once I had the characters in my mind, it was all downhill. Like, all the books for the series have been planned in some form or fashion. Book 4 has been started. Book 5 has been planned. That would be the last one of the series. But yeah, sometimes it just happens. Yeah, for now. No, seriously, I'm running out of characters. Like, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so if it's planned and you sound pretty confident that book 5 is it, you're creating an arc across all 5 books and then mini story arcs for each book.
Yeah, so it all centers, like in the first book when I wrote it, I was like, I love country music, 90s country music to be specific. And
What's that, like Garth Brooks?
Oh, Garth Brooks, yeah, Brantley Gilbert, Shania Twain, all of those artists, that kind of thing. And so I heard the song and I was like, oh, yeah, man. And all of a sudden, Jordan and Rachel, the characters in the first book of the series, were like, hey, that's our song. Now write our story. And I was like, oh, okay, great. That's how my brain works. So I wrote their story, and he's always wanted to be a country music singer. Like, that was his dream from the time he was 5 years old. He grew up, fell in love with his best friend, but then life kind of pulls them apart kind of thing. And it's like, oh no, how dare. And you find that it kind of has to happen, right? Life sometimes has to throw you those curveballs so you can find who you really are. And that's kind of what happens. But he ends up on a country music reality TV show. And so that's where it started.
Okay.
And so all the books are revolving around the characters, the contestants of this reality TV show. And so you kind of see each of them have a different experience and all that. So yeah, it all started there, and it just kind of ballooned from that one idea.
Cool.
I guess.
Exciting.
It's exciting, but it's a lot to keep up with sometimes.
Yeah. How long did it take you to write a book?
See, that's a hard question to answer, because my very first book took me like 9 months to write, but then there was the editing and the publishing that I was trying to figure out. So it was just over a year. But then like after that, I can write them probably in about 6 months, but then they have to go to the editor and stuff. But then with this series, like, man, I just pumped them out. Like, the story was just there, which is nice when that happens. And so it's not really an easy question to answer, but I will say that it takes about 9 to 10 months to get it from writing to published.
To get it from version 1 done? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which is not too bad. But these people who crank them out like 4 and 5 a year, I'm like, how do you do that? How do you do that?
I bet they don't have 2 young kids.
They probably use AI. No, I'm just kidding. They probably don't. That's terrible. I shouldn't say that. Write me a book, please.
Yes.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Everyone has tried it. And anyone who tells you they didn't try it, they're not being truthful.
Oh, listen, no, I use it all the time. I'll be like, hey, can you make this sound like a 17-year-old boy from Georgia? Because I've never been one. I don't know what that sounds like. Right. So sure, by all means. And I still have to fix it. Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's nothing that you can do that can come straight out of the box into the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, my gosh. We've kind of already tread into that water, but do you want to flip the script? Do you have other questions you want to ask?
I might have asked them, but I have a note here. Let me find, just give me 1 sec. If I don't find it right away, I'll
you're fine.
Well, in any case, tell me this.
Okay.
Why are you an author?
Because I have voices in my head that said, hey, write a story. No.
I know how vague that question is, but being an author is, or a writer of any sort, but an author is right up there with like being a performer, maybe a musician. Like, people romanticize being a musician because music, blah, blah. But it seems like a really tough existence.
So I've always loved writing just in general. Like, writing was always something that I found myself doing, whether I was writing really bad poetry or, making up songs or pretending that I was a school teacher. What didn't matter. I was always writing something, but I never realized until almost 3 years ago that being an author is not something that is off limits. It's not something that happens to 1 in a million. If you write a book, if you have a story that you want to tell and you write a book, you're an author, right? Like, you just have to find a way to sell said book. And that's the hardest part, honestly. Like, if you love writing and you love stories and you put those two things together, by all means, just then surround yourself with the people who can help you do it. But I think to answer like your question directly is, I never really set out to become an author, which is funny because that's what happened. But I had a story I wrote it and I thought, what am I going to do with this? It doesn't make any sense to just leave it sitting here. And so I was like, I guess I'm going to write a book and publish it. And so I did.
Right.
And then we learned the hard way not to do it certain ways and to do it other ways. And here we are. So, I mean, I never really meant to become an author. It's just what happened.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's probably the healthiest approach. I think for any creative endeavor, if you approach it from a financial standpoint, 9 times out of 10, you're just barking up the wrong tree. You know, it becomes really challenging, you know, to, first of all, you're limiting your creativity. And I'm not talking about what I do, because what I do is about clients have budgets and I make things within their budget, right? But personal art and you know, if I truly believe as a creative, and maybe not for a painter, because that's even more tough to make a living than an author. Mm-hmm. But I really believe if you do it with conviction, you'll find your audience.
Absolutely. Conviction and authenticity, not to overuse the word, but it's so true. Like if you have a story, you have it for a reason. And it's really selfish of you not to share it if you have a story.
Well, yeah, I agree. Also, I think 10% of the people with stories act on it.
Oh yeah.
Right? So it comes down to execution. Mm-hmm. You know,
it does. I think everybody has said, I want to write a book, or I've been told I should write a book.
Exactly.
And, okay,
look what I said 20 minutes ago. I'm like, maybe this will be the reason, you know? Yeah.
Yes, then do it. Like find the people, and the game changer for me was finding the community that I surrounded myself with, finding the other authors who we were like-minded but different enough that we could have these conversations that made you go, hey, get off TikTok and start writing. Like that's, you know, we have to have those conversations. Right. And so to find those people who will be in your court and will help you be a better writer, author, publisher, marketer, all the things that you have to do if you are
now it's artist. Not enough to just be an author. You have to do all those other
I've always been an overachiever. Yeah. Or a masochist, I'm not sure. They're about the same. Anyway, oh my gosh, I could keep this conversation going for another hour and it would be amazing.
For you.
Yes, we should definitely do this again. We will figure out how to get it on the schedule. And it'll be great fun. Yeah. But in the meantime, how can listeners connect with you and your work?
BottleRocketMedia.net is my company website. I can be found also BottleRocket312 is Instagram and TikTok, and the 312 is Chicago area code, which is where we are based out of. I'm also on Instagram at Lively Fisher, and I'm not super active as I want to be because I run out of time every day.
Not because you're on TikTok.
Well, the last 3 weeks, I mean, you know, this year I made myself a promise that I was going to post for fun, really for fun, and mostly AI, and then behind the scenes stuff for my shoots every 2 weeks. I joined TikTok with Ghost Town.
I'm telling you.
Ghost Town. But yeah, so Bottle Rocket 312 on Instagram and TikTok, BottleRocketMedia.net. We're all over LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. Dan Fisher. You know, it's not hard to find me.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I will make sure all of that ends up in the show notes. And I have one final question for you. Nobody's ever gotten it wrong. Are you ready?
To get it right or wrong?
We'll see.
Okay.
All right. The big question is, what is one piece of advice or encouragement you want someone to walk away with if they hear nothing else from today's conversation?
Only one? Okay.
Only one.
If it's only one, just do it.
Oh. Yeah.
Execution. That's what it is. You said it earlier with TikToks. You made a bunch of really crappy TikToks and you've improved, but you're only going to get better if you make the crappy ones.
That's right.
Right? So the difference between success is doing it versus not doing it. So just do it.
Yes.
Make the mistakes, get out there and do it. But if I could give you another bit of advice,
okay,
I would say exactly what you said. Surround yourself with the people that you're not afraid to ask advice from, that you're not afraid to get help from, that can inspire you. The inspiration part is almost secondary because you have to be inspired internally to really get it done. But nobody's expected to know everything. So find people that can answer the questions you can't.
I love that. No, that's fantastic advice. I mean, it goes back to, you were saying execution. Like, if you don't go and do it, because you said 10%, and technically I think it's only 1 or 3% of people who write the book actually publish the book. So the numbers get smaller the higher up you go. So if you do it, your chances of success are pretty good because everybody else dropped out.
Right. And I'm going to follow that up with advice I don't take myself. But if you wrote 1 paragraph a day, that's a win, because at some point you'll write 2 and then 4 and then 6 and you'll be doing it. You know what I mean? And it's no different than exercising, eating right, staying in touch with family, whatever it is, whatever the thing is, like, you have to keep doing it. You have to exercise that part of your brain. You have to keep doing it. The more you do it, the more it'll happen.
Absolutely. This was so good. Dan, thank you so much for hanging out this afternoon, and let's definitely do it again sometime.
I'm around. You know where to find me.